I remember just going, oh my God, like what have I just done? I've just signed this in the middle of this period here with lockdown. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I remember going and speaking to Dad, and again, he just said, you got to play the long game. You've got to think about the fact that this is a moment in time and it will get better.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. There are many different types of food service operations, catering to very different markets and with their own unique offerings. Often, an establishment will thrive when it's housed amongst a row of different operators because it creates a hub and an energy that draws in a crowd. With the pandemic shutting down some or forcing others to take away, what impact has that had on the hospitality operators that feed off the energy and custom of their neighbours? Sandra Foti is the owner of Piccolina Gelateria in Victoria. Sandra, how are you going?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a bit of a wild ride this last couple of months. What's it been like in the gelato game?
It has been a really wild ride. Um, Gelato. I think we were already essentially a takeaway business. So from that perspective, things haven't changed too much. I mean, obviously people can't come in and sit down and eat gelato in the store anymore. So things like that have changed. But people wanting to go out and have a little moment of joy that they find in a gelato, that hasn't changed. And I think, in fact, it's kind of increased. We've had so many messages from customers saying, please don't shut down, please stay open. Is Piccolina going to be okay? And they just kind of want to come and have a moment in time where they can just escape and have a chat and have an ice cream and just be happy. And so that's what's been happening in our world. People kind of coming to us for that moment in time.
Well, I think what's interesting is that gelato is actually eaten a lot at night time, and often we think of ice cream or iterations of as a daytime when it's hot, something that you would eat. But often people are going out to dinner and perhaps not getting dessert in the restaurant and heading to a place like yours to fill up. What's it been like this period with restaurants that are normally around your businesses no longer there because of the shutdown?
Yeah, when we went into the first lockdown, it was like at the beginning, the first day, or the day before, everything was fine, and then the next day, it just was not okay, and it was like a tap was just turned off overnight, and it was pretty scary, and I had a lot of sleepless nights. But I think pretty quickly afterwards, people started to just order loads and loads of takeaway, and that sort of side of things just took off. So, where we'd sell cones and cups and people would just come in, just to grab something, like you said, after dinner, they were just buying tubs of ice cream, and we just couldn't keep up with the takeaway. It was insane. So that definitely changed. But people consuming gelato didn't change.
What's been some of the challenges during this time for you? There's been, a second lockdown has happened, but, there has been, you were a takeaway model already to start with, and you had that advantage in some aspects, but it's been quite a challenging period for you nonetheless.
Yeah, it's been really challenging. Personally, I found that I just had to somehow control that fear inside me that would take over if I wasn't careful, if that makes sense. Um, I think when something like this happens, you just have to be positive for everybody around you, for all of your staff, and and for your customers, and so I was just constantly positive and being switched on for everybody else, and I just had to sort of work out a way of turning that fear on its head a little bit, and I think also at the time, my father was really terminally ill, and I would sit and have conversations with him just through my life about business, and he was an incredible entrepreneur, and so I would go and sit with him and just say, "Oh, Dad, this is going on. What do you think? And what do you think of this change that I'm making? And what do you think we should do in the business?" And I'd talk to him about my fears, and it's like, "Oh, Jen, this is scary," or how do I navigate this situation? And he said to me, he's since passed away, and was really hard in itself, but um, one of the things that I remember him saying to me is, "Sandra, when everybody else is scared, that's when you need to be really, really brave." And I've repeated that to myself so many times since he passed away. When we've faced challenges, or when we've thought about new projects that we wanted to take on, and you have that moment where you just kind of go, "Oh God, should I do it? Shouldn't I?" And I've always gone back to those conversations that I've had with him over the years, where I think he was an incredible person at kind of changing or controlling his mindset, if that makes sense. So really just looking at the positives, and just, I think that's what kept him going for so many years. He battled his illness for many, many years, but he worked right up until the last, 2 weeks before he passed away. He was a phenomenal person, and a really big influence in my life. And I guess I've drawn lots of strength from him and from what he taught me over the years from little. And I've applied a lot of that during this time.
That strength that you gained from him and then pass on to everyone you work with, that's amazing for those people that you work with. But how's it been on you maintaining that sort of strength on behalf of everyone?
Um, I guess I don't really tell people or let on to many people that I have fears or that I'm scared. I think I'm really upbeat when I'm at work. I can just kind of switch into that mode, where people probably wouldn't even know that I've not slept the night before, or that I've been fretting about something. Um, I guess I just try and take that fear that everybody has, which it's normal, and just kind of use it to drive me, and to motivate me to do better and to achieve more. And I think if you let fear take over, it can just destroy you. And so, we all experience dark times, and I've experienced dark times in the past where I have let it get the better of me. But as I said, I think you need to just change your mindset, and be positive, and look at the silver lining. Look for the silver lining in everything that you do, and that's what I've done, and that's what I when I walk through the door at work, that's what everybody sees, I think. And generally, and it's what I believe too. I mean, I do try to be really positive, but it's normal to feel scared. But you just have to, you just have to keep going. I think you just have to pick yourself up and get on with it. And even during this pandemic, everybody's talking about the world that's falling apart, and it's like, okay, you have to just stop and say to yourself, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, what is the absolute worst thing? And when you think about the worst thing that can happen, you're like, okay, well, it's not that bad, and okay, and you just need to keep going and look for the positives, I think, and that's what I try to do.
Well, something that does put a smile on people's face and is quite positive is gelato. Like, why gelato? How did that all start?
Um, Gelato, I think so. I've been always been surrounded by entrepreneurs, and I've grown up in a really entrepreneurial family, and so starting a business was not something strange or foreign. Um, I've talked about my dad. He's had many businesses, and so has my mum and my sisters as well. And so for me, it was just a natural thing to start my own business. Why gelato? I guess I'd worked with my sister for many, many years, um, and I think it was probably about 5 years ago, I just felt like it was time for me to do something of my own. I needed to prove to myself that I could do it. And I was looking for something that was unique, something that I could create. Um, I love creating, I love design, and I've always been in the design industry. And so I knew that whatever I did, design would have to be a part of it. And then it was just about finding something that I could create. So I studied graphic design, and I didn't want to go back to that. And I'd worked with my sister in her business. She runs Hub Furniture. So I worked with her, and obviously wasn't going to open something to compete with her. So I thought, well, what can I do? And I don't know. I just thought, you know what? I remember my dad making gelato at home at Christmas. And he used to make this phenomenal gelato that was all made from scratch. And he'd spend weeks like preparing all the ingredients and roasting the nuts and making nut butters and all this kind of stuff. And we'd have this amazing gelato at Christmas time that Dad would make. And
Wow.
yeah, and I remember him saying to me, I know how to make gelato. And if things go really bad, I can open up a gelateria and and we'll all be fine. And he had these recipes, these insane recipes, and the idea was, well, he used to say gelato is recession proof, if because he was in the building and construction, and he was an architect, so he was in development, and so he used to say, well, I've always got that up my sleeve if something terrible goes wrong. But he used to make it at home, and I remember just thinking, hang on a minute, maybe I can steal some of his recipes, which he wouldn't give the recipes to me. He actually would not give them to me. I'm like, Dad, can I have those recipes? I had to actually really negotiate with him to get them. But anyway, I said to him, look,
Real entrepreneurs.
I'm not joking either. Like he didn't want to give them to me, but I got them in the end. But no, he so yes, I thought, I I can't I can't think of any place that I can go to get gelato like what I have at home at Christmas. And I thought, you know what? Maybe that's a good idea. I'm not a chef, and I've never worked in a restaurant. I've never even worked in a kitchen or in hospitality in any capacity. But, this is something I can control. I can develop my, set menu of flavors, and I'll do them really, really, really well. And I think I can open up a gelateria. And it was literally that's how it started. And I went and I found a shop and I leased it. And then I thought, okay, well, I better figure out how to do this properly. And so I went overseas, And I contacted someone before I left, who I found overseas who produced gelato the way that I wanted to do it. And went over there and spent a couple of weeks in his gelateria, figuring it all out and understanding it, and then ordered all the machinery before I came home. And within 6 months of making the decision to do that, I'd opened up the, the first gelateria. And it was a really, really crazy, crazy wild ride. I was, yeah, pretty knee deep in it. I had no idea what I'd gotten myself into, but you just have to sink or swim. That was it.
Well, what makes a great gelato?
Um, oh, our approach is to create something that just is traditional and it just stands the test of time. Like we put so much effort into the flavors. So, if we're making pistachio, we will roast the nuts ourselves and grind them into a nut butter. And so it's got that real sort of homemade, sort of that roasted, little bit salty flavor. And for us, there's nowhere to hide in that flavor. Like, it's not, it doesn't have any toppings or anything like that. It's just traditional Italian gelato. It's been there for 100 years. It'll be there for another 100 years, and so that's what all of our flavors are about. That's what we kind of think is great gelato. Just really incredible ingredients, um, and just made from scratch. Really, just all homemade. So just it's exactly like what I grew up having. And I've been able to kind of expand that out um, in all the stores. I haven't had to compromise on any of the recipes or any of the methods. It's just basically exactly what we used to do at home, but just way more of it.
Now, you may be like your father and not want to share your secrets, but what are the secrets to the viscosity in getting that gelato, that dense sort of feel that you have, mouth feel?
We've spent a lot of time. So, of course, I started off using a lot of the recipes that um, Dad had, and that was the concept. But I think there's a real science in making gelato and making it on a really big scale. There are things that you do at home that if you do in a gelateria on a big scale, you can really see the mistakes. Like when you make something at home, you kind of make a liter and you consume it like that day or the next day, so you don't see any problems. With a gelateria, it's a little bit different, and if you make a mistake and you're churning hundreds of liters of something, you can really have some issues there. But I think it's about really, really good ingredients and balancing the sugars and the fats, and but it comes down to really good ingredients. You can tell if something is of a high quality. It's like when you eat really incredible chocolate and you're used to that, and then you go back to something that's not so good. You can really tell the difference.
You've also done some crazy and interesting things, like you had a gelato-filled panettone once at Christmas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It's just a bit of fun to be able to keep doing things that are really creative and really different, and all of these sort of events that happen throughout the year are an opportunity to play a little bit and get creative. So that one was really successful. We had a lot of that was crazy. I think we put things out there, and I'm always surprised, not surprised because the product's fantastic, but I think I'm just more humbled that um, that we get such an incredible response to what we put out there. And the product's really, really good. And so we've got a great following, really, really loyal customers. Um, but yeah, I'm always like, oh wow, okay, people are buying our product. This is really great. I just think it's really humbling, I think.
Do you have a gelato experience that stands out for you?
Oh gosh. Not not really one that stands out. I think just that idea of coming up to the holidays and having dad just churning gelato at home is a memory that will stay with me for a long time. Like he was pedantic about how he did things. Like he would get all the eggs and he would wash the egg before he cracked the egg, and he was really, fastidious about making sure things were clean and sterilized. And he would just like do all these calculations around the gelato because he knew how to balance it all. And so he was always there, like creating a new flavor and doing all these calculations. That was always really funny. And yeah, we were never allowed to know the recipe. That was also pretty funny. But yeah, I just remember him making just a mess of the kitchen till like 2 in the morning. And then just, yeah, there would just be this huge cleanup that poor mum would often do the cleanup, or we'd all help do the cleanup. But then just kind of like having these tubs of gelato that would just be consumed within literally half an hour. Like it would all just be gone, and it was so good. It was really good. Yeah. That's my gelato memory. That's probably the strongest memory that I have growing up. And of course in the business, I mean, there've been lots of memories just, you know, especially when we opened the first store. I mean, I remember I was churning gelato, so I was behind the machine and I was serving customers and I was just doing everything. It was nuts. It was really crazy, but it was fun.
Well, a lot's changed since those early days. Has the last couple of months changed the operations of the business and what you'll do moving forward?
Oh, yeah, the last few months have definitely changed. I mean, the operations have definitely changed. I've always been really fastidious about cleaning and hygiene, but obviously we've stepped that up dramatically. Everybody's in masks and wearing gloves, and we're really careful about trying to maintain sort of as much, how can I say, distance sort of from each other, so that I guess that if there's an issue with one store, it's not going to impact the other stores. So I'm talking sort of from it being shut down perspective. So our teams in Hawthorn don't cross over with our team in Collingwood, and the guys well, our team in St Kilda as well, and our guys who deliver before the stores are open, so that they're not having any contact with staff there. And the kitchen, when the first lockdown happened, we broke the team into team A and B. And poor team A started at 4 a.m. and finished at 12, and then team B took over at 12, and kept going. So we changed the operations a lot from that perspective. I mean, I don't know I don't know what it will look like moving forward, but certainly I can't imagine it changing very quickly. I think this is here for a little while, and we just have to adapt and change as the situation evolves, I guess.
We've spoken to a few operators that have opened restaurants during the pandemic, and speaking to you the other day, you mentioned that you're also expanding during the pandemic. You've got another store opening soon, is that right?
Yeah, we do. And that was I signed the lease for the new store before COVID was even kind of part of our vocabulary. It was back in, like, I think it was end of October. And I remember, these things always take time, and you're going to get the lease documentation and all that kind of stuff happening. And by the time the COVID was really on our doorstep here, I going back to that idea of fear, I remember just going, oh my God, like what have I just done? I've just signed this in the middle of this period here. We'd locked down. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I remember going and speaking to Dad, and again, he just said, you've got to just not worry about it too much. Like obviously you need to worry about it, but you got to play the long game. You've got to think um, about the fact that this is a moment in time, and it will get a lot worse, and things will change, but it will get better, and you've just got to be brave. You've just got to take advantage of opportunities that might come up, and kind of and take them and really just go for it. And so he gave me that confidence, I think, to just take that leap. I mean, I'd already taken the leap. I'd already signed it, so there was not much I could do. I just, you have to make it work. But since then, I think a couple of other opportunities have come up, which if I hadn't had those conversations with Dad, I perhaps wouldn't have taken those opportunities up. But it gave me the confidence to go, okay, there are these other fantastic opportunities. I'm not going to be I'm going to be cautious, but I'm not going to be scared. And yeah, I'm going to play the long game, um, and just go for it. And again, having that internal dialogue, that conversation with myself, what's the worst thing that could happen here? And then just doing it, just giving it a go.
There was something a little earlier that you said that was really interesting, that you negotiated the recipes from your dad. Um, if you're happy to share, can you describe the experience of finally getting the recipes from your dad?
Um, yeah, he he told me in no uncertain terms that I was not to share these recipes with anybody, that they were very valuable. They're very valuable, and I'm very lucky to be getting them. And so yeah, it was pretty special. He did this incredible rum and raisin, and we put it out sometimes. It's not on the main menu, but he did this insane rum and raisin. And I remember him saying, "Look, some people put this much rum. You need to put more than that. We put this much rum, and and that's what makes it good." And it was really special. It was special to yeah, it was special to get the recipes. And I think once I finally got them, like it was such a battle to get them, that then once you finally get them, you're like, oh, that's a bit of a. I kind of enjoyed the battle to get them. Now that I've got them, it's like, oh, now I've got them, right? Oh, okay. Oh, anyway, no, yeah, it was good. It's a special thing to look. Dad had heaps of things that were, closely guarded, and they were his, special things, and I guess the recipes were one of them. But he just wanted all of us to be successful, and whatever he could do to help us, he did do. So, yeah.
You mentioned that his rum and raisin wasn't on the main menu, but looking at the main menu that you have, and you've got different gelato flavors, what do you think has been the gelato comfort food flavor of the pandemic?
Oh, I think all the creamy flavors are always really popular. Um, People love pistachio and chocolate and all those sorts of really rich flavors. But, surprisingly, we launched a whole range of um, bake at home goods, which was kind of came out of, I was walking down the aisle in the supermarket, and I remember going, oh my gosh, there's no toilet paper, but there's also no cake mix or pancake mix, or all the cookie doughs are gone. And I thought, oh, hang on a minute, maybe I can create something that we make, a Piccolina sort of cake mix or something like that, that our customers can buy from us. And they can buy it with a litre of gelato and just bake it at home. And that's really taken off. And
Wow.
yeah, that's been incredible. I can't believe it. It's just they fly out the door, these packets of mix that we've made, and they go beautifully with vanilla. So vanilla was never a really popular flavor, but we just keep selling out of vanilla now. So that's been good. That's been interesting.
Well, I'm shocked by that. People are always shocked when I say my favorite flavor is vanilla. It sounds a bit beige, but when you have an
It's
incredible
classic.
vanilla gelato, absolutely. But I'm actually quite interested. Someone who's a professional and makes it and sells it for a living. What is your favorite?
My favorite, oh gosh, I get asked this a lot and it changes all the time. But at the moment, I love, it's a flavor called Better Than Nutella. It's our version of Nutella. It doesn't have Nutella in it. It's our version, and that's why it's called Better Than Nutella, because it's all natural and yeah, made from scratch. So that's a go-to. I love that. And I really love the coffee. The coffee's really good. But it's funny, I remember a customer saying to me once, oh, just make me a gelato, anything you want, you choose. And so, oh, okay. So I put together a cup for him, and he's like, oh, I hate those flavors. I don't want those. I'm like, you told me to put together a cup of whatever I thought. I was like, okay, well, we'll just throw that out. What do you want? That was funny, but yeah.
Well, Sandra, you're an amazing success story and an inspiration. We've been blessed to have you on the Deep in the Weeds today and sharing your story. Keep in touch, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.